I'm here at the SPIE meeting in San Diego, California. I attended the meeting for the first time this year, and I have to report that it has been actually quite an interesting meeting for me. When I arrived on Saturday, I was planning on attending the JWST meeting on Sunday, and I thought that it turned out to be a rather interesting meeting, interesting session, just because it was extremely well attended, which was surprising given the fact that it was actually set up to be on Sunday. So among the highlights of this conference, I think I can basically address a few. There was an entire session devoted to software, which was rather interesting. In particular, it touched on software pipelines, VO efforts, and things like this. There was another session on extremely large telescopes, which was very interesting. And then there was something called lightning sessions at the end of the software session, which I will mention in a second. So as far as the software session, I think I was very interested to see what the first ever VO session would bring to the SPIE, and I have to say it was a little disappointing to see that it was basically a little stale, in the sense that what was brought to the attention of the participants here was something that perhaps, because I'm familiar with, was a little old, was just what VO is currently doing, and to their credit, they have Ray Plant gave a very good presentation, but I thought it was a little old in terms of what VO could provide for the future. I actually assumed that it was going to be a little more projected toward the future now that the VAO, the Virtual Astronomical Observatory, has been funded. So it was a little disappointing there. At the same time, there were other sessions in the same, there were other talks, in the same session that were relatively well focused, but quite good on databases, on LSST data pipeline issues, and on LSST data management issues, which I thought were very interesting. Among the most interesting VO-related talks, I thought that the VO event sessions led by Rob Seaman were probably the best, in the sense that they gave an interesting overview and an idea of what the VO is actually doing in that area, which I think has been very successful to Rob's and his collaborators' credit. One of the most interesting things I saw in this session was the Catalina survey, which is basically a survey that is constantly finding asteroids, nearby asteroids, and it was quite impressive, and how easily one can do science with relatively small telescopes. The Catalina survey uses like 70 centimeters telescope. That actually, I think, is fantastic. The second topic was, as I said, extremely large telescopes, and I think it was very interesting for me to be exposed to technologies, to be exposed to the issues that are at the forefront of folks thinking about telescopes of very large size. In particular, I was struck by the talk that was given by the project manager of the 30-meter telescope as a it was a very nice talk. It was a talk that actually exposed all the issues, from the political issues to the scientific and astronomical, but also to the software issues that were actually being brought to the forefront by the construction of such a large telescope. As some of you might know, the site for the TMT 30-meter telescope has been selected. It's going to be on Mauna Kea. And I remember actually being on Subaru for a visit a few years ago and seeing actually the site where now TMT will be built. So rather interesting. There were a few other talks that were not as interesting, but at the same time, again, they showcase, I think, the issues that are basically relevant and quite important when it comes to very large telescopes, and this is not just data management. It just is in general, how an endeavor that large actually gets underway. And then finally, in one of the last sessions, Kim Gillis from Space Telescope, who will soon join the TMT in the next month or so, suggested that one of the sessions organizer considered doing something called lightning talks, which is basically talks where anyone can stand up for 5 minutes. They have 5 minutes and 5 minutes only. You can give as many slides or as little slides as you want, he or she wants, or no slides at all. And the issue is that these talks are very limited. Someone can bring up any issue they like, and so there were many people that brought up very interesting issues, not just silly issues or silly questions. And they were very good provocative talks. And this reminded me sort of a few things that I've seen before. For example, things that are commonplace at Innovate Baltimore or the Innovate series, and things that were actually done, for example, at the Google I/O in at the Google SciFu when I attended a few years ago. So it's a very interesting, dynamic kind of environment where anybody can stand up and ask questions even to the audience, which happened actually a few times, or people can stand up and talk about their latest, greatest software or one of the problems that they have. I stood up and I showed, probably in a minute or so, just a few view graphs of what I thought the issues that surround software development are, and how many times the needs of the users are hardly matched by the development of the actual product developed by the developers, and also vice versa, how the needs of the developers to understand requirements are hardly met by those that actually should provide the requirements to them as use cases. So in this session there were a few interesting talks, and one of them was actually a talk that sort of repeated, if you will, in 5 minutes another theme, which was data management at the CADC, the Canadian Center, and in the Canadian Archive. And Severin gave a very good talk. He gave a very good talk at the session for the archives, but also at the lightning session. And I think his presentation underscore how far ahead the Canadian Data Center CADC is actually ahead of some of the archives in their use of data models built in the use of some of the VIA technology that actually do provide benefits, and also in their use of virtualization and data management and single sign-ons. So I think it was a very nice talk. And I think all in all it was an interesting week. I wish there were a little more I guess pipeline and software talks rather than less, a bit less perhaps instrument talks, but this is not the ADAS, this is the SPIE, so I should have expected this. But all in all, a very interesting conference. So I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed also San Diego.